song is called My Lighthouse, and I hope that you will clap along and sing along with us because it's a fun one. Great day, everybody.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, all of you out there watching this on a screen, live stream. Welcome to Unity of Boulder, where we share in the beauty of just being alive. There is so much beauty around us, and for some reason, we spend too much time in our heads, too much time worrying about what's going to happen in the future, concerned about what has already happened in the past. We got to get over that. We're headed for a new age, just beyond this coronavirus pandemic, which is going to end in a very quick time. It's going to end sooner than we thought. I believe it's going to end before this year is out, and we're going to be back to living our lives. But until then, we can still be looking at all that is beautiful around us, all that is good and real and true. So we give ourselves that permission to enjoy the moments in which we are actually living. Life is going to be beautiful. We are going to enter a new age. So I just want to share that with you because you're about to hear, see, and share an amazing talk that's going to be given by Teresa.
Welcome again to Unity of Boulder. My name is Mike Shadle. I'm the administrator here at the church. If you ever have any questions, comments, or concerns, my office is right in here at the back end of the bookstore. Always stop in or give a call and say hello. I always appreciate that. I've got one quick announcement for you today, and this one is for the ladies. Teresa is going to start a new women's book group right here. It'll be live, in person, in Fellowship Hall. Everyone's going to sit kind of far apart. Do a little distancing there, but we do want to do it live. It's going to start February 4th, and it's going to run for 5 Thursdays in a row. from 6 to 7:30 p.m. It's $25 to register. You can register right after the service in the bookstore or online, or you could call us, or you can register the first day on February 4th. It's $10 per class each evening, and it will be the book that they'll be reading this time is called The Wild Edge of Sorrow by Frances Weller. You'll hear Santisha mention that in her talk today. If you are interested, just please let us know in the bookstore. Thank you. Oh, I'm going to introduce our musical guest today. Come on up here. We're lucky today. We've got a good friend of Unity of Boulder playing for us today. She's played for us many times. This is Rebecca Abraxas.
Thank you. You're sitting there with your sad heart, thinking about how to make a change, to be the change in your world, feeling like a hopeless girl. I know those feelings so well. Your voice matters. Your voice matters. I know today feels so hard, feeling small, but you feel so tall. So many things you cannot change. You can cast off those chains. There's something you can do. Your voice matters. Your voice. I know I could do it the way you can. Tell your story, sing your song, your voice matters. Look in the mirror, what is your message to us? Break down the walls, build up your trust. Let nothing stand in your way. When your heart has something to say, be you who change the world. Pick yourself up, what's on your mind today? Let the world see you, let the world hear what you have to say. Your voice matters. Your voice. And know I could do it the way you can. Tell your story, sing your song, your voice matters. Tell your story, sing your song, your voice matters.
Good morning, everyone. Nice to see you all here today, and welcome everyone that's online joining us today. And that song was super appropriate considering what I'm going to speak about today. And thank you, Rebecca and the band and Nicole. And we have just such an amazing music program here. We're just so completely blessed. Finding all the places we can find our blessings is a way to keep navigating through these really difficult times and finding joy in the midst of what we see going on in this world. My talk title today is You Used to Really Love This. And I came up with this title this last week when I was really just contemplating life and the things that I was seeing on TV. It was about last week with the whole, everything that happened at the White House, and I got kind of addicted to watching it for a few days where I just couldn't take my eyes off it. It was like watching a terrible accident happening, and you just can't look away, but you want to look away, but I guess you just want to know what's going on, and it just completely took me out of my peaceful being. And being a Libra, that's my nature, it's balance. I need balance. I'm a subtle feeler. I feel everything, and I really know better to not watch things like that. So it really, really did catapult me into a place that I don't want to visit very often in my life. So You Used to Really Love This is about life. I used to really love life, and I wanted to start contemplating my love for life and how to bring that spark back into my being in everything that I do in the midst of this time of upheaval and change. I want to find my peace, and I want to find my joy during all of this change. So I was contemplating that and thinking about what has kind of taken me down in a spiral of losing kind of hope in the world, losing and actually feeling distrust towards people, our government, society, the news. You start to just wonder what is truth and what is not. And I think both sides of the aisle feel that way right now, and we're actually united in that distrust. We don't know what we're actually reading or seeing in this outer world is true. But what we did see as far as an upheaval happen on that Wednesday, that happened. What caused it, we're not exactly sure. But even in the midst of, if we're all made in the likeness of God, and we are all one, something in them is in us also. And there's a healing that's being called for us to come back together, and it just seems like there's more and more reasons for us to separate. It's just every time we think we're going to come back together and find this unity, something massive and tragic happens in the news, and it just separates us again. And we want to sit in our little worlds with all the people that agree with us so that we feel safe. And so then they want to be in their worlds, be with all the people that agree with them and feel safe. And then, again, we just keep being a divided country, a divided people. And I read this book recently that was sent to me as a gift from a woman that's attended my women's book groups. And she sent it to me, and the title is The Wild Edge of Sorrow. Rituals of Renewal and the Sacred Work of Grief by Frances Weller. And in the midst of that feeling kind of empty, I started reading this book. And I realized the emptiness that I am experiencing, and I know that I'm not the only one, is a sense that we have lost a part of our innocence. Our childlike wonder towards life is just being chipped away from us. And we're seeing more of things that we would like to start unseeing. And it affects, it creates a damaged image in our beings, and so we are slowly not being our powerful, spiritual, united souls of wholeness facing life. We're becoming fragmented, and we need to do our meditation, we have to do all these things, but at the same time there's a wounding, because inside of it there's this grief. We are experiencing grief. You can't go through an entire year like this last year and think that we're just okay. I've been saying I'm just okay, and I'm meditating, I'm doing little things, but I realized I'm not okay. I personally am subtly not okay. And starting to read about what images, like we've been seeing in an outer world, what that does to us. If we do not grieve it, it will change us forever. Because trauma changes us. It takes that loving kindness, that subtle mushiness, that cherub-like beingness out of us, and it makes us hard, and it creates sharp edges. In the book, Wild Edge of Sorrow, it says this: when we are exposed to violence, whether in wartime, natural disasters, or the violations of our integrity in body and soul through assault, some part of us splits off in order to survive. While this move is necessary in order for us to keep on living, it also carries a loss of our essential wholeness. Trauma always carries grief, though not every grief carries trauma. Therefore, grief work is a primary ingredient in the resolution of trauma. Ultimately, these gates all lead to the same chamber, the communal hall of sorrows. It makes no difference which door we open, which threshold we cross. Every one of us has grief at each of these gates. When we feel hesitant or uncertain of our worthiness to touch our sorrow, knowing these gates are there offers us a way to connect with our losses, wounds, and disappointments. Opening to our sorrow connects us with everyone, everywhere. There is no gesture of kindness that is wasted, no offering of compassion that is useless. We can be generous to every sorrow we see. It is sacred work. And there's kind of a subtle loss of hope. Who feels that right now? A subtle loss of hope. To stay positive in the midst of the greatest changes we've ever observed in our lifetime in the smallest amount of time, right? And in this book, it's talking about connecting with your sorrow and your grief just as importantly as our happiness and our joy. We tend to have a nature that if it's grief, we want to stick it somewhere because we can't handle it, because we don't know if we can get over that quickly, because we're in a society that says we don't have time to grieve things. So we're always trying to manifest something more positive that's different than this. Let's manifest something positive that's different than this. And yet we keep witnessing more cuts and more sharp edges happening in us. And so we keep putting this grief in a place until it eventually lets loose and it takes over everything. Because you can't put it anywhere for that long. Eventually, it has to come into the light. And I learned this many years ago when I lost my son. What happened when I lost my son was I was just put in grief. And I had to survive grief. There was nothing I could do to avoid the grief that I was in. And being in it felt a lot more comfortable than trying to be out of it, because it wasn't natural to try to be joyful and manifest something different. I had to be with it so I could move through that grief to discover the wisdom that was sitting within that pain, so that eventually I would see the light at the end of the tunnel. And I think that we're all kind of getting to that point where we're losing faith in this greater potential, this greater love. Well, how can more and more things happen, God? And we have to keep our heads up and smiling and saying everything's joyful, everything's peaceful, everything's great. But even your greatest saints and your greatest masters have had moments of losing faith. I found this from letters that were found after Mother Teresa died, in the working with the most impoverished children on this planet, day in and day out. And I wrote into the internet, how did she keep her faith with so much pain surrounding her? And in one of her letters, she wrote this, in quotes, I have such deep longing for God, and I'm repulsed and empty. I have no faith today. I have no love and no zeal. Saving souls holds no attraction to me today. Heaven means nothing. Please pray for me, please, that I keep smiling at him in spite of everything. This is Mother Teresa, who became a saint faster than any person that walked this planet because she did such amazing work that they didn't have to go through all those things, years of stuff where they finally decide in the Catholic religion that she's a saint. She hit sainthood way sooner than anybody because of her incredible giving soul. But even she had days that she lost faith. And some of us might beat ourselves up in those moments when we've lost faith in this greater love. And we have to find a way to move into the grief, because in the grief is where the answers are. If we keep thinking we're going to just pick ourselves up and brush ourselves off and just keep going and act like all of these things have not taken our innocence away, and we are seeing a world that we don't want to get worse and worse, then we have to take to task our consciousness and what we're letting into it. People might say, I don't have time to meditate. I'm working 2 and 3 jobs now to survive after this coronavirus has hit, or this, that, and the other, but we don't have time to not be meditating. We have to visit this greater potential, this greater love. We have to sit in it. We have to bask in it. If we can't go to work, we have to sit in that and start finding a way to grow our collective consciousness back to oneness. Step back from our lives, not 2 paces, enough paces that you can visualize your entire life. What at the core of your life has been needing your attention lately, but you have stayed too distracted to see what you need to bring to your life? Because our lives are also unraveling. It's not just what we're seeing in the world, because what we're seeing in the world is also coming and affecting and unraveling our own personal lives. And so there's this subtle vibration of, right? We're tired of COVID. We've hit our peak of being separate from the things that bring us joy, like our gyms, like our dance teachers, like our mentors, like our in-person counseling, our horses, our life, our things that we did to keep us connected to this greater something. We've been stuck with self, and so we've gotten stuck to TV. And then we lose track of who we really and truly are and who we actually are becoming. Why do we keep putting on the news? To watch the uprising of the greatest ego we've ever seen in the world. I'm not saying one particular person is ego, I'm saying as in a collective energy of ego at war. What do you actually want in your soul energy? Because ultimately, at the core of who we are is a soul. This comes and goes. We've done this many, many times. This is the coat that we wear. But at the core, you came in as a soul with an understanding of this greater love. You came from that. But we've become human doings in the midst of the doing of the human race, which is suffering terribly right now. And when the soul leads us, we become human beings. We get out of the doing and we connect with the being. And in beingness, we feel everything. Not just the good and the joy. We feel our heart break. We find ourselves driving and crying. We don't need to put our finger on why am I upset right now. How could we not be upset right now? How could we not want to feel our tears fall to show us the truth of what we've witnessed here. So, when I found myself in that empty place after watching too much news for about 48 hours, I do things to get myself distracted. So I thought, and I was on a staycation. I took a week off that week. And if anybody knows, when you have 2 kids, a staycation just means you're standing in your kitchen making food all day and washing dishes. Not so much a vacation, and cleaning constantly and sweeping because everybody's just in the house. So I thought, well, I'll do a project. You know, I have an old farmhouse, and there's always a million projects to do. So I wanted to repaint my office. And I got my 13-year-old daughter on board to help me, because keeping her busy with something is the best thing you can do, because all she wants is attention. So this was perfect. And we had a great time. We put on great music. We talked about music. I played all folk music of my youth that I love, that reminds me of a time that was easier, of concerts, of Red Rocks, of playing, of dancing all night, of laughter with friends, and all of it, and sharing all this stuff with Katya. And we're painting, and the room is becoming more and more beautiful as we go. And then I hadn't bought enough paint. And I live in Lyons, which means I have to drive all the way to Longmont to, Home Depot or whatever. I still don't want to go, but I'm like, okay, it's an adventure, Katya. We're going to now get going, and we're going to go get paint. And everything, I treated it like was an adventure with her. And even at Home Depot, she's just so excited. We're getting paint. Everything. I let her pick out her own special brushes, because now we're about to start trimming the edges in a different color. And we went to lunch, and when we got home, I was so tired, because I'd started the painting at like 6 in the morning. She joined me around 11 when she woke up, because that's what kids that are homeschooling are waking up at times like these days. And so it's probably like, 3. And I'm finding my hand is like shaky. I've painted so hard. Clearly, I put all this energy, this stressful energy into the painting. And I just want to get it finished. And I'm doing one of the last door edges. And I had just filled the big pan with paint. And because of my exhaustion, I knocked it off the ladder. And it fell in between the threshold of this bathroom and my office. And it was everywhere. And I stressfully said, Katya, get some towels. Oh my God, get some towels. And I said it with this bitey voice. And I was like, oh, because I've been so good. And I was so playful with her. And we just had this really great time. But just the growledness in my voice, I knew it would just undid all the good time I just spent with her. Trying to give her a fantasy of life like everything's fine. And she comes in almost scared of me. And I just felt horrible. And she helped me clean up all the paint. And we kind of wrung the paint into this bucket with some water. And then she looks at me and she says, can I pour the water down the sink in this little bathroom that we have? And something in my mind saying no, because I'm not supposed to pour paint down the drain, but it was mostly water. And I'm too tired, and I just go, yeah, go ahead, just pour it down there. And we're talking like half a bucket of water like this. It pours down, and the sound is all wrong. And my daughter turns with these massive eyes. And all the water goes shooting out of the bottom of the sink all over the floor. And it was like, oh, that's right. Mike was fixing this sink. And I started laughing so hard. And the two of us just sat there in a pile of paint all on the floor in the most wonderful laughter of our life. It just was like, it just, doesn't it just feel like that's what life's like lately? It just is pushing you. How patient are you going to stay? How patient will you stay if this happens? How patient will you stay? It's like the year of freaking surrender till we just want to lose it. Well, luckily, I lost it in laughter. And I regained my day and what I had committed to do with my daughter, which was to spend time with her and have laughter. And I know she'll always remember that. That moment where she thought she did something wrong, which she didn't. And this time, instead of biting at her, just pure, unadulterated laughter from our souls, which was so needed. So we're having all these opportunities to ask ourselves, maybe I can learn to love something about this. Maybe I can learn to love something about this. This time where everything is falling away that we're attached to. This time where we feel like to have faith in something is hard. Where our trust is leaving and our faith has been waning. And I keep having flashbacks of childhood. I'm thinking of childhood. What are the things that inspired me, things that I remember? And I keep having this conversation that I had with my dad when I was little. And he picked me up from dance class this one day. And my dad wasn't one for small talk. You're going to have like a conversation about the grand things of life, you know. And he said to me, Santisha, when you grow up, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a dance teacher. And he looked at me with this look, and you know his eyes. You don't want to be a dance teacher. You want to be a dancer. I always hear that in my mind when I'm thinking of taking the safe route in something in my life. The safer route where there's some sort of lack of self-love or self-esteem where I could do it half-assed. Or am I going to be a dancer? Right? And there's something, what does that mean? There's these moments where I'm watching stuff come up. There's a message in it. What am I learning when I hear my dad saying that? But there is this original call in all of us that is unique to every one of us. A call to be and do in this world something great. Not necessarily for money, but something that is uniquely yours. And what if all this surrender is about putting us back on track with that very uniqueness that was always yours, but you had blinders on and you couldn't really completely, totally see it? As we watch all this comfort leaving us, what are you discovering is uniquely incredible about you? And as we discover that unique piece of the puzzle, we can start putting this puzzle back together and create a world we know is possible. So I was sharing with my daughter that I've been feeling down about the world and how I wish she could go back to school, and her school is going back into hybrid learning. But my children haven't been able to go back because their father has health issues and won't let me send them back to school, which they need to go back to school badly. So there's a lot of repression there because I feel like I have no free will to do what I believe would be best for them, which is to go to school. And I am feeling burdened, and I'm feeling all these things. And she said, you know what, Mom? You've got to watch this movie I just watched the other day with my brother. And I said, well, what was the movie? And she goes, it's the Pixar movie titled Soul. S-O-U-L. And I watched it by myself while they were in homeschooling on my computer. That particular day, our internet didn't work, so it was actually my day off, but we came all the way into the church to use the computer, so I stuck in my office on my first day of staycay. And I watched that movie. And I had wet eyes through the entire thing. It is pure magic. It is exactly what our souls need to remember what our soul is and why we are here. It is so beautifully done. It is such a creative experience, and it's not for children only, it is for all of us. But these are the words I wrote down after I watched that film. When is the last time you played a piece of music that used to inspire you and closed your eyes and let it move you to your core and felt the world melt away as you entered your heart, feeling every movement of the number lifting your spirit back to wholeness. Then you realize you were enjoying something. And then you feel the tears rolling down your face. You realize you were enjoying something that inspired you, and now you are basking in your deep longing for something you experienced before, and that is grief. We want to feel that beauty again, and that grief is leading us back to the beauty. That's not the one I want. I guess I'll just read this. Think of the visual of that moment when the shining face of someone who has just released his or her cup of tears, standing before us, naked and cleansed. Let me start again. Think of the visual of that moment when the shining face of someone who has just released his or her cup of tears, standing before us, naked and cleansed. We are seeing someone as beautiful as Botticelli's Venus or Michelangelo's David. It's that cleansing. It's the allowing ourselves to feel everything about everything. And not just keeping our helmet on and just moving through it because it's like, God, it's all so uncomfortable and it's all so dark and it's all so difficult. And so then we just put on our armor to just keep pulling off what we have to pull off. Why do we have to keep pulling it off? We are spiritual beings first, then human beings. And how we get back to the spiritual being is letting ourselves tell ourselves the truth. This hurts. This is really sad. I am really disappointed. What are words that you felt about this time? Call them out. Angry? Loneliness? Trust? Distraught? Say it again. Isolated. Those are all real feelings. And those are all feelings that we're allowed to feel. In the Pixar movie, they refer to what a lost soul is. Lost souls are obsessed with something that disconnects them from life. They'd never discovered their spark in life or have lost their spark. Can anybody relate with that feeling? You might have known your spark, but maybe you've lost it a little bit. Or you could be a lost soul because you're obsessed with the news that keeps you distracted from what is being planted and birthed within you as your individual soul is to be doing right now, which is feeling all of it and allowing those you love around you to feel it as well. So tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day. He was the chief spokesperson for nonviolent activism in the civil rights movement, which successfully protested racial discrimination in federal and state law. And I think, considering the times that we're in, that he would want me to talk about Black Lives Matter today. Because we are all in pain. We hear the painful outcries triggered by the murders of so many Black people in this country. It's not just Boulder's bubble. People think Boulder is a non-racist town, and that is simply not the truth. I know somebody that's making a documentary about it right now. I went to a white high school in this city where all of the Black kids sat together and didn't feel like they could be a part of everybody else, and they sat separate from all of us. Even though we wanted to interact, none of us were taught how to interact because this was such a white town. We recognize unity in this overcoming is long overdue. We recognize that this fight is a difficult one to have. We recognize there is still a long way ahead. We must stop racism. If we believe in oneness and that we are all born in the likeness of God, then we are all born perfect. And yet our outer reflection of what we're seeing in this world is that's not how everybody's being treated. And we can all do better. It is more important than ever to not treat this moment in history as just another day, but to stop, listen, and reflect. We recognize that the entire international education community can and must do better at educating ourselves and our communities and taking effective action as individuals and organizations to tackle stereotypes, biases, and systemic racial and discrimination injustices. See, this is something we can do. We're feeling out of control in our own lives with all that we're seeing in this outer world. And we can all do better. We can speak out. We can speak up in a peaceful way when we see an injustice happening. Even in perfect Boulder, the spiritual bubble, it's an illusion. People are still experiencing this today in this town that we live in. And this is all races. This is all people. This is everybody should be being treated as equal. So these are some questions we can ask ourselves. What biases do I hold? How can I change my behaviors that might oppress and hurt others? What inequalities and injustices have I ignored in my family, community, workplace, country? How do I support those who face various forms of systematic oppression and have fewer opportunities than I? Where and how can I learn more about transforming the way we collectively view and treat one another? I know that this is a topic that we might not want to talk about in church because we just want to have a happy-go-lucky experience. But what if each week at church we were given a call to action? To bring to mind, into our consciousness, you might think that you're not doing anything that's oppressing anyone, and you probably aren't. But when you see someone, or if you see a little something, for the week you work on that. And we better ourselves so that we're more all-inclusive in this world. So early on, I read what Mother Teresa said when she was in such turmoil with what she was visualizing. I have such a deep longing for God, and I am repulsed and empty with no faith and no love and no zeal. So another thing that she wrote is holiness is not in the feelings of an imagination, it is reality. One thing that helps me and will help you is this: works of love are works of holiness. However that's supposed to show up for you today. I want to start that over so you can hear the beginning of it. Can you put it to the beginning, please?
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will, and He's allowed me to
That was the last speech that Martin Luther King gave in the year of 1968. And he said that he had seen the promised land. And he said that he would have liked to have had a long life. And at one point he even says, I don't know if I will have that. Almost knowing that his work was going to end there, but it didn't end there. He is alive and well in the work that's happening now. We are all waiting for the promised land in 2021. And we are the change that we are looking for. So feel your soul, feel your feelings, so you can become so authentically you. And when you are that, you are the living God. Thank you.
Well, once again, Santisha takes us through a whole range of emotions. How dare her? But it does give us pause to reflect on what is truly valuable. And I'm so amazed that we have the opportunity to keep reminded of what is truly valuable within ourselves and bring forth that spark from within ourselves so that we can bring more of joy, light, peace, understanding to the world we live in. So it's another beautiful opportunity just listening to Santisha share what is truly valuable. And now we'll take an offering for unity. We'll do it with our COVID-19 restrictions. Those of you that are watching on a screen, you know, we have these many ways that you can tithe to Unity of Boulder and keep the services, the classes, the counseling, all that takes place all week here going. And those of you that are here in the sanctuary, we invite more of you to show up here. We still have room for some. I think we're still allowed to put 50 people in the sanctuary. But for all of you that are here, we have a basket in the lobby, and we have dip jars for your credit card if you want to give in that way. So let's bring to mind that financial gift we'd like to make to Unity of Boulder. And let's bless it with this affirmative prayer. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive, because I give. So it is.
My window and on my screen. It's the inside and it's the outside. It's the inside and it's the outside. I'm gonna be the change I want to see. I'm gonna be the change I want to see. I know it's all up to me. It all comes down to me. It all comes down to me. It all comes down to me.
Thank you, Rebecca and the band. You guys were amazing today. Wow, I love her music. It's super heartfelt and just a tad appropriate.
Yes.
It's like she wrote the sermon from that song. It was great. Thank you, Rebecca. And Nicole, join us. Let's all rise and close with our closing song.
Before that, let's announce, though, that
we have
do
prayer
have prayer
partners
partners.
available.
That means if you want to share a prayer with someone about a special issue that you're dealing with, just remain seated. When everyone leaves the sanctuary, our prayer partner will come up to you and share a prayer with you, or take you downstairs to the beautiful meditation room and share a prayer with you there.
I release
And I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. I release and I let go. I let the Spirit run my life. And my heart is open wide. Yes, I'm only here for God. No more struggle, no more strife. With my faith I see the light. I am free in the Spirit. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God. Yes, I'm only here for God.
All right.
And so it is. Great to see you all. Love you all.